Kids Fantasy, Legend of the Sword, Kids Adventure Stories, written by Jeff Child, narrated by John H. Feskins. Introduction. When grandmother tells her grandkids a story of a heroic young man who saved the kingdom, they find it hard to believe that it really happened. But whether it did or not, they love the adventures she mentions. Legend goes that a brave adventurer was faced with the elimination of his entire race. An evil curse had come upon the inhabitants of Soraya, the country in which they lived. Nobody had seen it coming, and none were saved except for this young fighter. Confronted by the various challenges on the path to rescue, his future and that of Soraya is in his hands. Attacked by dark creatures and tested to the core, he ventures through fields of zombies and skeletons to retrieve the magical Sword of Honor to break the curse. Chapter 1. Untold Legends.
Legend goes, grandmother begins, that a long time ago, when your grandfather was still alive, a young, handsome guy saved everyone in the lands of Soraya.
I thought the army came in and destroyed all the enemies, Carl says.
That's not true, Chantal says. It was the firemen. They blew all the zombies away with their distinguishers. Where do you kids learn such nonsense? Grandma asks. Of course that's not how it is. Do you want to know the story or not? Will it be scary?
Arya, the youngest of the three, asks.
That depends on what you think is scary, Arya, grandmother answers. All I can say is that it has a happy ending. Do you like happy endings? I do, Arya says enthusiastically. Good, then don't worry about any of the monsters in the story. They're not real and they don't win in the end. In fact, you may even discover along the way that they're not all that bad. Some monsters are just confused and victimized by the terrible mess that was caused. Do you think you want to listen to this story? It sounds like fun, Arya says as she shrugs. Go ahead and tell us. Okay, listen carefully. It all started with a young man named Valerius. He was handsome and happy, but he wasn't very rich. It didn't matter to him. He lived in a peaceful town. Someday, he said, he was going to marry his sweetheart, whoever that would be, and no matter where he would meet her.
Chapter 2. Escape from Fate. Valerius was a farmer's boy. His parents taught him to work hard every day. Each morning he woke up early. He milked the cows, herded the sheep, and fed the pigs. His favorite time was in the afternoon when his dad gave him a break and he was able to climb the mountaintop. He loved sitting there and staring at the amazing view from the peak. It always took him an hour to hike up and about 45 minutes back since it was downhill, but he would happily spend the time doing it. One day, an eerie wind blew over the fields and crops. It was an icy, vague feeling that came over Valerius as he looked to the direction where it came from. He didn't have a good feeling about this. Something was wrong. He just had no idea what. When he went back inside the house, his parents were gone. He looked in every room downstairs. "Mom? Dad?" he yelled. No answer. He went upstairs. He checked their bedroom, the hallway, and even the storage room. "Where did they go?" he said out loud. "Maybe they went into town." He shrugged and went back outside to watch over the animals, but some of them were acting strange. They were skittish and nervous. It was as if they were sensing something was wrong. He looked at the cows that were shivering, the horse that was walking back and forth, and the chickens which were flapping their wings more than their usual. Still, the cold, creepy wind whistled in his ears. Valerius decided to head towards the village center. That was the only way he could find out what was happening. Perhaps some of the other villagers knew more about it. He walked into the back alleys of the village and came to the big square in front of the town hall. Nobody. "Is anybody there?" he shouted as loud as he could. Hello? Anyone? No answer. Odd, he said. Normally there are tons of people here during this time of the day. He turned around the corner and went inside a butcher's shop. Big pieces of meat were hanging on the ceiling. Bloody chopped lamb and pork were on the counter, and a butcher's knife had fallen on the floor. Besides the mess in the corner, with papers and wrappers stacked up in a small space, there was nothing abnormal about this place, except that there was nobody there. Hello? Is anyone in there? Nothing. He left the shop and went into the bakery next door. The delicious smell of baked bread welcomed him in as he followed his nose to the main sales table. There were cakes, pies, and loaves of bread piled up on each other, but there was no baker. Can anyone hear me? Valerius asked. This silence was starting to annoy him. He was desperate for answers, but nobody could give them to him. They couldn't have all vanished, could they? Where were all these people, including his parents? Suddenly, he heard a soft sound from outside. It was as if someone was whispering to him and trying to catch his attention, so he went outside again. Psst, he clearly heard. It was coming from behind the wall of the shoe shop. Hiding with his back against one wall, a scrawny midget was putting one hand next to his mouth to make his whisper louder, and using his other hand to beckon Valerius to come closer. His outfit was tattered and dirty. His shirt was blue and his pants were brown. He looked as if he hadn't done much with his life, except for begging and scavenging. What? Who are you? What's going on in this town? Valerius asked. Not here. Follow me and I'll explain it to you. The walls have ears. We shouldn't draw any attention to ourselves, not with what's at stake. Valerius wasn't too certain about this shady figure, but he figured he had nothing else to do, nothing to lose, and he wanted to know why everybody was gone. So why not? After passing through a few streets, the midget asked him to take off his shoes and come inside. When Valerius entered, he saw a tiny living space. Some stuff was piled up in the corner, and this midget's personal hygiene was anything but perfect. It stunk a little, and it was obvious that he was even poorer than Valerius and his family. By the way, my name is Vexor. I am not from Soraya. I came here years ago looking for a guild, a job, and a way to make a living. But I got turned down by so many professionals that I ended up on the streets begging for food. Fortunately, it has paid off. I am able to go through each day with a somewhat satisfied feeling in my stomach and a few friends I have made along the way. I am Valerius. I live on the outskirts of the village, on a farm, Valerius said. And were you born in Soraya, Valerius? No, I was born in Milford, actually. How did you know that? It's just like I presumed, Vexor said. The stories are true. It has happened. What has happened? Will you please explain it to me? I don't understand any of this, Valerius said impatiently. Everybody is gone, because they all turned into monsters. Valerius looked at him for a moment. This guy was serious. He tried to keep it in, but he couldn't. Suddenly he burst out laughing. Don't laugh, the midget said. It is true. Sure, dude, Valerius said. Did a little fairy tell you that? A lot of people knew about the curse, Vexor said. I am surprised you never heard of it. Do you have any clue what happened before you came here? Okay, smarty pants, then how come you and I were not transformed into monsters? Because we were not born here. The curse doesn't apply to us. Let's say you're right. Why is it that everybody is gone? And if everyone is gone, then why are you being so secretive anyway? They aren't all gone. That's why you need to keep your voice down, Vexor said. Most of them went to other lands, but some of them are still lingering in the village. So don't talk so loud, please. Valerius still found it hard to believe. At least he stopped laughing, but the explanation of this supernatural event still required an elaborate explanation. Chapter 3. The Quest. Here he was, standing in front of a midget who was dead serious about the fact that each civilian in Soraya had turned into some kind of monster. Valerius was perplexed. He didn't know what to think anymore.
"So go ahead and explain," he said after he sat down on a crate in the left corner of the room. "Long ago, a few decennia at least, that's how the story goes, there was a robbery. A slick thief had entered the home of an innocent peasant and stolen various golden treasures. His shadow was seen, a man with a black hat. The next day, police officers and guards were roaming the village, looking for the criminal that had committed the terrible, dishonest act. When they came across a man with a black hat, they accused him of the robbery and threw him in prison. The man kept insisting he had done nothing wrong, claiming that the hat was just part of his daily attire, but nobody believed him. He was in prison for more than 10 years, always staying true to his claim of innocence. Eventually, the man became seriously ill and was about to die. In his anger and with his sorcerous background, he cast a vengeful curse on the inhabitants of Soraya, saying that one day only the Sword of Honor could restore their sanity."
"The Sword of Honor? And what would that do?" Valerius asked.
"Don't get ahead of the story," Vexor said. "Let me explain. The Sword of Honor is made of diamond. Any creature touched with that blade will turn into its original life form. The curse was that all males would turn into zombies, and all females would turn into skeletons. This would reveal their true nature and show the world what kind of spiteful beings they really were. Later, the village guards found another black hat. They traced the person who possessed it and found all the stolen treasure in his basement. The village was shocked. They had judged the wrong person. The newfound criminal went to prison instead, but it was too late for the poor man who was falsely accused. He had already died. The villagers were upset, but there was nothing they could do about it. Since then, numerous explorers and brave individuals have attempted to find the said Sword of Honor to reverse the curse, but none of them have succeeded."
"It's an interesting story, I give you that," Valerius said. "But as much fun as it was hanging out with you, I still have things to do. So please excuse me. I'm on my way to find my parents. Next time, come up with something more plausible. I don't have any pocket change anyway."
"No, you don't understand. The story is true. The day of the curse has arrived. You must believe me," Vexor said.
"Sorry, gotta go. See ya."
With that, Valerius walked out the door.
"Crazy, weird midget," he thinks. "As if I have nothing better to do than listening to stories about zombies and magic swords." Convinced about the irrationality of the person he just met, he stepped around the corner and continued his search. Suddenly, something attacked him from behind. The monstrous person growled.
"What the?"
Valerius turned around and looked into the eyes of a vile, reeking zombie, who was drooling from the corner of his mouth, showing his fangs, and lifting his hands while pointing his claws towards his newfound victim.
"Ah!"
Valerius screamed in panic. He turned around and ran towards the tiny house where the midget lived.
"Let me in! Let me in!"
he yelled as he banged on the door. Finally, Vexor opened up. Valerius left no time to explain. He stormed inside, knocking Vexor over, and locked the door.
"What happened?"
Vexor asked.
"Ha! As if you don't know. Please don't take this personally or start thinking you're so great, because the compliment means nothing, but you're right. Sorry, it was just a weird story. I believe you now. With my own eyes, I just saw a freaky zombie that was about to eat me," Valerius admitted. "Ah, so you concluded that the rest of my story is probably true, too, didn't you?" "Yes. Tell me where I can find the sword, and I will undo whatever that prison guy has done to this village." "I was waiting for you to ask me. Let me get my map. It will be easier to show you."
Vexor got a map out of the cupboard. He blew off the dust of the old piece of paper and placed it on the table.
"We are here," he said. "See, this is the village. The zombie lands are here. The skeleton lands are there. Do not kill any of these monsters. They are humans,
And by retrieving the Sword of Honor, you can reverse the curse and turn them back into humans. Understood?"
"Of course, it makes sense," Valerius said.
"I am glad you get it. I know it requires a lot to walk through these territories without slaying a single zombie or skeleton, but you'll just have to find a way to avoid them. I never said it was easy, but it will definitely be worth it to be called a hero, won't it?"
"You're absolutely right."
"Now, the Sword of Honor is in the Black Mountains. You'll have to go through the zombie lands and skeleton lands to reach them, but I saw from the beginning that you're the kind of person we can count on."
"And why do you think that?" Valerius asked.
"Because you're the type of guy who sets his mind on something and then goes for it until he accomplishes what he has planned. I can just tell. Don't disappoint me, Valerius. I know you can do this."
"I can definitely give it a try," Valerius said.
"That's the spirit," Vexor agreed. "Here's the map. Go get some rations at home."
"Wait, aren't you coming with me?" Valerius asked.
"Of course not. I would be eaten alive. I am too small and too slow. I would only hold you up."
Valerius said goodbye to the little midget and went on his way to a new adventure. Before he took the route on the map, he stopped at his parents' place and gathered some food. He put everything in a bag and left. Chapter 4: Zombie Territory. The zombie lands consisted of a dark forest with creepy branches and rotting leaves. Valerius wasn't very happy about the atmosphere. A zombie could appear in front of him and jump at him from any corner, tree trunk, or perhaps even from the tree tops. With a shovel in his hand that he took from home, he snuck through the woods, trying to find the right direction to the Black Mountains. A zombie said. The zombie hadn't noticed him yet, but he could hear that the undead monster wasn't far away. Then he heard the sound almost next to him. He hid behind a wide tree, with his back against it and his curious face leaning around the edge, trying to catch a glimpse of the approaching zombie. The zombie passed him without seeing him. That was close. Crack! Suddenly, and accidentally, Valerius stepped on a dead branch on the floor. The sound startled the zombie, which turned around and looked at Valerius.
"Whoops," Valerius said. "Gah!" the zombie yells as it sprints at Valerius. Zigzagging through the trees and almost tripping over other loose branches, Valerius managed to evade him, but bumped into 10 other zombies. They all screeched and screamed, gnashing their teeth and chasing after the scared villager. Bang! Bang! Valerius hit a couple zombies on the head with his shovel. Knocking them out seemed to work, as long as he didn't kill them. Bang! Another hit. Unfortunately, a somewhat smarter zombie ducked and pushed Valerius against a tree. Ouch! This wasn't working well enough. The hordes of zombies kept coming. Bang, bang, bang! He kept hitting zombies with his shovel, but it seemed like only more of them were coming. It frustrated him. He had to find a solution. After a while, and a dozen more zombies smacked in the head, he got an idea. "I wonder if zombies can climb trees," he thought. He ran to one of the trees, a tree with sufficient branches to climb on. Quickly yet accurately, Valerius grabbed one branch after another, moving towards the top. He looked down. Nobody followed. They were all scratching the tree with their nails. "Too stupid to even know what to do," he thought to himself. At least he was safe for now, but where could he go from here? Did the zombies still see him? Were they going to keep hanging out by the tree? He looked down again. The zombies were still there, trying to climb the tree but failing miserably. Valerius decided to wait. He waited and waited. An hour had already gone by. Aha! That's what he hoped for. The zombies started to give up. One by one, they left the tree and began to wander in different directions. The part where he would sneak past them again would come up, but this time, he wanted to make sure he went into the right direction. "Let's see. The village is over there," he thought out loud as he put his hand above his eyes, trying to get an overview of the whole area. "The Black Mountains must be that way, according to the map, past the skeleton lands. It's pretty foggy over there. Let's hope I can find my way through that thick blanket that's hanging in the air." After seeing the last zombie departing from the tree, Valerius slid down and snuck past the other zombies. No more mistakes. He was on his guard more than before, and the end of the woods was near. Chapter 5. Skeleton Territory. "So these are the skeleton lands," he said. "I can understand why they are called like that." The thick fog made it almost impossible to find one's way, but what was clearly visible were the bones and skulls on the ground. Half of the plains were covered with them. It made a spooky impression, revealing another ugly face of the undead. Valerius had the feeling that any of those bones could get together and form an entire skeleton that would attack him by surprise. The thousands of bones, rib cages, and skulls didn't exactly make it easier to avoid making noise during his journey across the plains. He stood at the rim of the gigantic field, not looking forward to traverse it, but he knew he had to. The fate of the villagers rested upon his shoulders. Valerius began to walk, even though he could only see about 5 feet in front of him. After a few minutes, he hears a sound. Something or someone was walking in his direction. He fell flat on the floor, face down. He looked up and saw a creepy skeleton walk by. But because of the thick fog and the bones around him on the ground, it could not see him. He hated lying on the floor with the macabre sight of bones all around him. It was a sickening environment, and the disgusting odor from the totality of this place didn't exactly make it a pleasant journey. But he was determined to get done what needed to get done. "I have to find that sword," he whispered, encouraging himself. On his belly, he continued to crawl through the dead, smelly mess, making sure that no skeleton that would pass him would even catch a glimpse of him. This was the safest way, he thought. Hundreds of skeletons passed him. None of them even thought of extending their gaze to the ground to see the crawling hero. They were all oblivious to his presence and kept going wherever they wanted without noticing him. Then a skeleton saw him. "Ah!" It screeched, coming at him with both hands as if it were about to choke him. "Ah! Ah!" Several other skeletons heard the noise and gathered where Valerius was now running away from the undead monsters. A chase began. Valerius ran as fast as he could, deviating from his course to the left and to the right to lose them in the fog. One skeleton stood in front of him. He held his shovel in place and banged it on the head. The skeleton fell over, and Valerius kept running. Bang! Bang! 2 more skeletons fell because of his direct hits. He ran, and eventually the screams of the pursuers were only heard in the distance. "Time to take cover again," he decided. Chapter 6. The Mysterious Friend. Valerius continued to do what he had done before. He knew he was closer to the Black Mountains. All he had to do is keep going and keep a low profile. He crawled through bones and muddy puddles, trying to see in front of him. But suddenly, one skeleton stood still and stared at him. The skeleton didn't do anything, just stared. Valerius was quite surprised. Why didn't it attack him? The skeleton held its hand down as if to beckon him to stand up and grab it. At first, he wasn't sure, but for some reason this particular skeleton appeared to be harmless. Valerius grabbed its hand and the skeleton pulled him up. Then it looked at him and pointed into the direction of the Black Mountains. Obviously, this skeleton knew where to go, even through the thick fog. This skeleton could come in handy. He reached inside his bag and took a necklace out. It had tiny gemstones surrounding a big blue crystal in the middle at the bottom, at its lowest point. It had been there since his mother accidentally dropped it when he was on his way to school. Since he was a kid, he never took the time to pull it out or give it back to his mom. He just forgot. Every time. Apparently she didn't care either. She had always been busy and didn't even remember the necklace. but now Valerius thought it would be a good idea to hand it to this skeleton to show his trust in it. Also, it would help him distinguish this skeleton from the hostile ones. The skeleton took the necklace and gratefully put it around its neck. After that, it pointed to the mountains again and beckoned Valerius to follow. Both of them hurried into that direction and reached the point where the fog faded away a little. They could see farther in front of them, which was beneficial in a way, but in another, it also allowed the hostile skeletons to see more. "Uh-oh," Valerius said, as he saw roughly 100 skeletons gazing at him. As soon as they realized he was there, they ran at him and screamed loudly. The chase had commenced yet again. Valerius ran for his life, with the friendly skeleton following him. It couldn't keep up, and Valerius wondered if the hostiles would attack the friendly skeleton too if he would leave, but he had to keep running. He ran towards the edge of a rocky cliff, jumped on it, and started climbing. The skeletons couldn't follow him. Just like the zombies, they didn't know how to climb. Valerius climbed higher and higher until he reached a mountain path. He pulled himself over the edge and looked down. Hundreds of skeletons were grouped underneath the mountain cliff, but none of them were able to follow him. He looked a little closer and tried to find the friendly skeleton. Somewhere in there, he saw a distant blue gem, and he knew it was his female friend. At least the other skeletons didn't attack her, and he was thankful for her assistance. Perhaps they would meet again, someday. Chapter 7. The Sword of Honor. Valerius hiked up the path and found that it had been there for a long time. His conclusion was based on the old signs, the ancient handwritings, and the pebbles piled up on both sides of it. It didn't take him long to reach the distinct location as indicated on the map. He was there. He looked around and saw something glimmering in the distance. He kept walking and came closer. There it was. It was a sword in a stone, covered in ivy and bushes. But through the green plants he could easily distinguish the glittering handle, the diamond blade, and the inscription on the stone. "Sword of Honor," it read. Yes, this was it. No mistake about it. Hey, what else did it say? "Only for those who use it for others." Well, I am certainly not getting this sword to sell it, if that's what they mean, Valerius said out loud. Hopefully I can pull it out and turn everyone back into human beings. He walked towards the sword, got some of the surrounding plants out of the way with his shovel, and pulled with all his strength. At first it didn't seem to budge, but as he continued to pull, it slowly gave way, and he was able to get it out. "Aha!" Valerius said. "Time to transform some skeletons and zombies." He descended to the foot of the mountain and climbed down the rocky sidewall. The mist had faded. The field was clear. The skeletons were wandering in the distance, all at their own pace and in different directions. One skeleton, however, was not too far away. Valerius decided to attack that one first. If he would just stab it with this magical sword, the transformation to human would take place, right? He got the sword, held it in front of him, and ran at the skeleton. Stabbing it between the ribs, he held firm to the magical weapon and watched as the skeleton crumbled to dust, still bubbling in on the ground. It looked as if there was still going on. Perhaps it would take a while before the transformation would be complete. Either way, this was the sword he would rely on. It was his only chance. Valerius looked at the roaming undead in the distance. "Come on, you ugly skeletons! Let's see what you're really made of!" he yelled. Within seconds, dozens of skeletons were storming at the hero, who slashed and dashed the numerous creatures with his blade. One by one they fell, crumbling and boiling on the ground. It didn't take long for the whole field to become one big, boiling soup of bubbling skeleton remainders. The skeletons were easy to fight. They didn't show too much resistance. Valerius had to exert himself for a while to stab all these bony monsters, but eventually they all fell victim to his combat skills and his mysterious sword. "Phew!" he panted. "That was a good workout." He looked at his body. A few skeletons had scraped him and scratched his arms. He was bleeding, but just a little. It wasn't so bad. Valerius clearly knew how to defend himself. "Now the zombies," he said with a determined look on his face as he moved forward to the creepy forest. After finding the dark and dreary woods, he did the same thing, yelling and taunting the zombies, the supposed males of the village. Like customers who are offered a free sample, the zombies ran towards the young farmer and tried to choke or punch him. Some of those attacks were a success, but most of their feeble attempts were futile. Valerius moved his sword from left to right, from up to down, stabbing, slashing, cutting, and evading. He chopped off some zombie heads, stabbed some in their rotting hearts, and punched several zombies to the ground. Each zombie touched by the blade showed the same chemical reaction, crumbling and boiling in the soil as if it was going through the transformation process of turning back into something else. Valerius wasn't too sure if his actions had the desired consequences. Nonetheless, what he did know was that the problems with the undead would soon be over. He just hoped he would see his family and friends soon as humans. Having stabbed and cut a few hundred zombies, he leaned on his sword, exhausted, allowing himself to take a quick rest before returning to his home. The forest had turned into a giant puddle of boiling corpses, not so pleasant to walk through, although it had been necessary to perform this act. He continued through the woods and arrived at his old farm. Having wrestled through these hordes and being utterly fatigued, he let himself drop on his bed and fell asleep within seconds. He didn't know how long he slept. It must have been hours, maybe even a whole day. He slept like a rock for a long time. When he woke up, he saw his mother and father standing at his bedside. He jumped up. "Mom, Dad, I'm so happy you're here," he shouted as he went over to give them a huge hug. They embraced for a while, the three of them, finally united. Their joy was indescribable. "What happened?" Valerius asked after some time. "You did it, son," his father said. "You turned every monstrous creature on those fields and in those woods into perfectly healthy human beings, including us." "All I remember is that the skeletons and zombies were boiling on the ground," Valerius said. "Then you didn't see everything," his mother added. "It took a few hours before everybody turned back. The boiling was the first stage of the transformation. Either way, I am so glad you're awake, son. You were asleep for more than 15 hours. We were a little worried." "Tomorrow will be your big day," his father said. "The mayor will honor you and give you a medal for your heroic performance at the town square." "Really?" Valerius asked excitedly. "Of course. You're the one who helped us out. It's the least they can do. But before we go downstairs to eat, I have a little surprise for you. Well, 2 surprises," he said as he winked at him. He moved aside, and the midget who had told Valerius about the curse in the beginning stepped forward. "Vexor," Valerius said. He thanked Valerius and complimented him for his bravery. Then Valerius was introduced to a beautiful girl his age, who stepped forward and told him her name. She was wearing a light pink dress and a white undershirt, topped with red decorations, patterns, and golden edges on her short sleeves. Valerius was astounded by the gorgeous appearance of this young woman, who looked like an angel to him. "Have we met?" Valerius asked. "Of course," she said. "But I understand if you don't remember me. I didn't exactly look the same back then, if you know what I mean." Then Valerius saw it. She was wearing the necklace with the blue crystal he had given to the skeleton that had helped him. Chapter 8. The Secret. "But Grandma," Chantal said, "if she was the skeleton, then why didn't she tell him?" "Well, she didn't need to," Grandma said. "The fact that she was wearing the necklace was enough." "What if the necklace got stolen by a different skeleton, and she was just faking it?" Carl asked. "Oh, don't be silly," Grandma said. "Of course not. She held on to that necklace for life. It was like she fell in love with him at first sight,
when she saw this dashing young farmer's boy in through the fog. He looked like a young hero, the man of his dreams, with his strong arms and his shovel."
Grandma looked up and became a little dreamy. It seemed like she was in her own world for a few seconds, before snapping out of it.
"Wow, you really know how to describe her feelings, Grandma," Chantal said. "What happened to them? Did they really fall in love after that?"
"Ha ha," Carl snickered. "In love with a skeleton. Imagine that."
"Oh, you," Chantal said. "I think it's romantic. So tell me, Grandma, did they get married?" "I'm hungry," Arya said sporadically, interrupting everyone. "I guess I will tell you that story at a different time," Grandma said.
She took the children to the kitchen so she could fix them a snack. They all walked in front of her and left the room. Grandma took a deep breath and smiled at the necklace with the blue crystal that was hanging on the wall.
"Until we meet again in the afterlife, Valerius," she said with a smile.
The end. This has been Kids Fantasy, Legend of the Sword, Kids Adventure Stories, written by Jeff Child, narrated by John H. Feskins, copyright 2017 by Jeff Child, production copyright 2017 by Jeff Child.